my friends are struggling, I don't say take your time. When my friends are struggling, I say go on. When my friends are crying, I say go on. I live my life by that code.
He's back!
Sinek, leadership and communication expert,
author, TED speaker. His unconventional views have made him one of the most sought-after speakers on the planet.
There's no one quite like him.
Simon, how are you doing?
I'm actually feeling quite lonely. I'm struggling to communicate or present myself in a way that people will get who I am. I feel like nobody can help you. And the first thing that a lot of us should do is reach out to a friend and say, I'm struggling. You should never cry alone. We live in a world where most people are ill-equipped on how to be there for a friend who's struggling. The first mistake people make is they try and fix. Don't need them to fix me, I just need them to sit in the mud with me so I don't feel alone when I'm sitting in the mud. The fact that there's such a loud conversation about mental health is a spotlight on the fact that we do not know how to build deep, meaningful relationships. But the way I manage it, which is different than most, is I wish I had these skills 10 years ago.
Is the design of the modern world making it more difficult for us to find love and to keep it?
The problem with it is its grass is always greener because it's so easy to just go swiping. Something's out of balance. And as I'm going to say this over and over and over again, which is successful relationships are...
Simon, congratulations. You are the Diary of a CEO record holder. You've been invited back more than any other guest. And it's for a very, very good reason, which is that your episodes are always the most adored that we have on this podcast. They are the two episodes, the conversations we've had are both in the top 10 of all time on the show. And I always feel after our conversations end that they could have gone on longer. So here we are.
Well, thanks for having me back. I enjoy coming.
My first question for you today is, and this question's often asked quite flippantly, but I'd really like the real answer, which is, how are you doing?
I think when somebody says fine, they're lying. And so my instinct is to say I'm fine. I am going through some ups and downs. I'm in a period of flux, which is fine. That genuinely is good. I like a little bit of chaos in my life. It's where creativity comes from. And if I look back at my career, I would take a job, I'd have a fast-moving career, it would get to a great point, it would plateau, and then I'd quit. And I'm sort of at that point. I love a steep learning curve. I love a difficult situation, and I like trying something new and building something. And so I'm shifting away from in-person public speaking, which I think surprises a lot of people. But recognize that I never considered myself a public speaker in the first place. It's just something I did to advance my cause. It was never my chosen career. So not doing it as much as I enjoy it and I know is not that difficult. So what next is a little bit of an unknown. I have some ideas and I'm testing some things out, but I don't actually know where I'm going to go.
Why are you shifting away from public speaking? Give me the context as to why this is a sort of a pivotal moment.
There are multiple reasons. I consider myself a preacher. And when I set out on my journey many years ago, I was espousing a vision of what business could look like and what the world could look like, what our careers could look like that was different than the world that we lived in. Talking about purpose at work was some hippy-dippy stuff, and now it's a completely normal conversation. And I'm really proud to have been a part of that movement. And so when I would stand on a stage, I was preaching to people who had never heard of my work, who had never heard of these concepts, at least not explained the way I explain them. And I was converting audiences, and the good news is the movement has its own momentum. And I don't know how many, I'm converting vastly fewer people now when I walk into the room. Now they're looking for tools. Now they're looking for, which is great. And so I want to now pivot myself so that I can start having significant impact again, so that I can start affecting greater change, not just maintenance, not just reinforcing, not just affirming. change, impact is what I'm looking at. So that's a huge part. COVID, in some respects, was a gift. It created a marketplace for online. And so, I can do things that I could never do before, which is I can be in Chicago in the morning and Kuala Lumpur in the evening. That was impossible before. I have the energy to give to more people. So I'm doing that, which is great. And at the end of the day, I want to learn. I want to be in a situation where I'm actually not familiar, where I'm not very comfortable. I'm good on the stage now. I've honed my craft, and I want to be uncomfortable again.
Right.
The personal side is different. I know that mental health is a big and important topic right now, and I had a conversation with somebody recently, and I've realized I actually don't like the term mental health. It sounds like a fixed destination. It sounds like, if you don't have health, like if you're not perfect, there's something wrong with you. So any kind of divergence or sadness means you're imperfect, right? And that's not true. And I think it's an unfair standard to call it mental health. And I think because at the end of the day, like think about your body when you go to the gym, right? We call that fitness. And some days you have good days at the gym, and some days you have bad days at the gym. Some days your body feels amazing, you can lift huge weight. And some day, for whatever reason, you got enough sleep, you're eating well, you're hydrated, your body's just not working that day. And we're all familiar with that. And it doesn't really bother us. You're like, bad day today. And you move on. And you allow that to happen. But we don't treat our mental fitness the same way. Being a human, you are 100% mentally fit if you have sadness, and if you have joy, and if you have doubt and uncertainty and insecurity. That's what it is to be human. Like your body sometimes has pain. There's nothing wrong with your body. And so I like to call it mental fitness rather than mental health, right? I'm always working on my mental fitness. Mm-hmm. And I allow for periods of darkness. So right now, when you said, how are you? The space that I'm sitting in is I'm actually feeling quite lonely. Mm. And I learned about how to manage mental fitness during COVID more than I ever had prior, because we had to deal with so much shit, right? And so prior, I would have been embarrassed by saying I'm feeling lonely. I would have hid it, suppressed it, don't like negative feelings. Whereas now, I'm just sitting in it, not worried about it. I'm allowing it to go through me, like I'm allowing myself to have a bad day at the gym. And weirdly, even though it's not necessarily fun, weirdly appreciative of it, because it makes me human. It just reminds me of a story. Earlier on in my career, I was invited to speak at an event, which is the Association of Meeting Planners. So there's an American Meeting Planners Association, whatever it is. Literally everybody who hires speakers from every big company and association has their own association, and they come and have their own event. So to get invited to speak at this event is like, if you nail it, your career is set for the rest of your life. And if you blow it, your career is over, right? Because like literally everybody who hires all the speakers for all the big events is in this room. And I got invited. Huge honor, right? And I'm this back in the Start With Why days, and I'm good at Start With Why. Like I've done this thing probably thousands of times. I know my stuff. So I get up there, I'm doing Start With Why, and I lose my train of thought. It's okay. I'm a professional. I know how to deal with losing your train of thought. You go quiet, you relax, you get your thoughts back, and you pick up where you left off. It's happened before, no problem. So I do what I know how to do. I go quiet, and nothing comes in. And now the panic starts. Now the heart starts pounding. Now my life is flashing before my eyes. Now I'm recognizing, oh my God, my career is over, And I look at my pad, and I look at the audience. I cannot remember what I was saying. I don't know what to say next. I don't have a joke. I've got nothing. I've just got panic. So I turn to the audience and I say, do you ever have that feeling, that sinking feeling when you lose your train of thought, where your heart starts pounding and your hands get clammy and your life flashes before your eyes? I said, I'm having that right now. And I'll tell you, I am so grateful for that feeling right now because it makes me feel alive. And the audience exploded with applause. I said, right. Now, if somebody could please just tell me what I was saying so I could pick up where I left off. And somebody screamed something out and went, thank you. And I picked up and I finished. The point was, I could have suppressed the panic, but I was open about the way I was feeling. And what I learned was everybody was there to support me because I acknowledged that I'm human and it's relatable. And so that's how I feel right now. I'm more open about being in a darker space in the shadows right now because it makes me feel quite frankly normal. It makes me feel human, and it's part of mental fitness, And if I didn't have off days or off weeks, then how would I know what to work on? How would I know what good looks like? How would I know how to appreciate the happy days if I didn't have some days that were down? So I'm weirdly grateful for what I'm going through right now. It's a very long answer to your very simple question.
No, it was absolutely perfect. Well, obviously, we always do long answers here, as you know, but the context is so incredibly important and the subject matter is even more important. I know this because I've done a few talks over the last couple of years or whatever, and when I talk about the subject matter of loneliness, what will happen afterwards is I will have a young man who will come up to me, when people are asking questions afterwards, when you're taking pictures or whatever, and he'll get very, very close because he's scared of anybody hearing him on his right and his left. And I remember I have this visual in my head of it happening recently, and he'll whisper to me, a message of thanks for talking about my own loneliness in my life, but also asking for some kind of path through the jungle of loneliness, some kind of solution. And then when I look at the statistics around loneliness in the UK and in the US, it's absolutely incredible. I've often cited that Theresa May was the first prime minister in our country to appoint a loneliness czar for the country. I think the statistic which I've often quoted is that the medium American used to say they had 3 people they could turn to in a time of crisis, and now that answer is 0. And we're heading in that direction at a very sort of global, often Western world level. So I think the subject matter of loneliness is an incredibly important one. My first question on that topic then is, what is the symptom of loneliness? How does one know if they are lonely? And because it's so easy to confuse it with another feeling.
Yeah.
What's your sort of symptoms?
So when I say I feel lonely, and I think when people say they feel lonely, I think what it is that, we're social animals who want to feel included, but also feel like people see, hear, and understand us. And I think my symptoms of loneliness are feeling misunderstood, or like people don't get me, or worse, I'm struggling to communicate or present myself in a way that people will get who I am. You've heard me say this, there's an entire section in the bookshop called self-help, and there's no section in the bookshop called help others. And what we're desperately needing more than anything is a help others industry. Like, we do not teach people how to help each other. We do podcasts and write books about how you can find love, and how you can build your business, and how you can become a millionaire, and how you can find the job that you love. It's all about me, and there's not enough about how can you help somebody else find love? How can you help somebody else find commercial success? Or we don't do that, and we don't teach it. And those are the skills that are desperately needed for each of us to find mental fitness, because we can't do it alone. When you find darkness, however you want to define your darkness, you feel alone, you feel like nobody can help you, you feel like you have no agency, you feel like a lack of control. And the first thing that a lot of us should do is reach out to a friend and say, I'm struggling, or I need help, or I'm lonely, or I'm depressed, or I'm sad, whatever the feeling is. And that person, do your friends, do your colleagues, do your teachers have the skills to know how to hold space? So the first mistake people make is they try and fix. Don't try and fix. It's not a fixing thing. It's like, I had a bad day at the gym. Nothing to fix. Nothing to fix. But then, do you know how to listen? Do you know how to hold space? And I think one of the reasons more of us are struggling with mental fitness is because we ourselves lack the skills to help our friends who are struggling with mental fitness. And the more that we as a society are equipped to help each other, the more that there are other people there to help us. So, if and I have a rule with my friends. My rule is no crying alone. My close friends all know this, and we all obey it. Like, I'll get a call from somebody who's a significant person in the world that people know who they are, and they'll call me and say, "Do you have a minute?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, what's up?" They're like, "I think I need to cry." I'm like, "Go. What's on your mind?" And they'll tell me what's on their mind, and they will cry. And that's my rule. My rule with my friends is no crying alone. Because if you're at the point of absolute frustration, exhaustion, whatever it is that you can't hold it in, I'd rather you call me or one of us and you do it with somebody. You should never cry alone. And so I'm really good when I'm in a place like this of calling somebody and telling them, because I don't want to go through this alone. And some of my friends do have the skills where they can say, "How do you feel?" "Oh, this is how I feel." "That must be really frustrating." "Yeah, it's really hard." "Tell me more about that." "Well, I'm sort of going through this and that." And they know how to hold space. That's all I need. I need somebody to sit in the mud with me. Don't need them to fix me or clean me off or give me a towel. I just need them to sit in the mud with me so I don't feel alone when I'm sitting in the mud. And I think it's our responsibility to be able to have that skill set to do it for our friends and the people we love or our colleagues. We don't teach listening. We don't teach difficult conversations. The fact that there's so much conversation about mental health right now is of course in part because we've just come through this crazy ass thing called COVID and lockdowns and exaggerated politics and and divisions in our countries and et cetera, et cetera. Social media, sure, you can pile that on if you want. But I think really what it is, the fact that there's such a loud conversation about mental health is a spotlight on the fact that we do not know how to build deep, meaningful relationships. I think it is an indictment on our current state of affairs that not only do we not have the skills to be there for our friends, but we're the way we're reacting to it is by trying to seek resources to help me rather than teach me how to help my friends. I think we're going about it half-assed.
I was really surprised when you gave the answer regarding when I said the symptoms that have indicated to you that you are feeling lonely. Mm-hmm. I think even in my head, I was expecting it to sound more like an absence of other humans around you. Mm-mm. And that's the whole distinction between being alone and being lonely. Mm-mm. Your answer was about how you feel like you're not understood. Mm-hmm. By who? Is this friends or is this the world or is it?
I'm a middle-aged man who hasn't been married. Not that I care about marriage, but I haven't even had like a 10-year relationship. And I'm realizing some of it is self-inflicted. I chose a career path that made me pretty undateable. I was on the road so much, it was difficult to have a relationship. But some of it is also managing the effects or the symptoms of ADHD, which wasn't a thing when I was a kid, so I couldn't be diagnosed, which I'm glad for, quite frankly, because I had to learn to manage certain things myself, which became strengths as an adult. So not bitter about that. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 32. So pretty much in life, and one of the things that I've learned how to manage it really well professionally. Like I know how to manage my ADHD in a professional context really well. I'm only now learning some of the symptoms, how it affects personal relationships and how I show up in relationships that I didn't even realize. So my whole life I'd be in relationships and women would tell me, "You're so hard to read." And I was like, "I'm an open book. What do you mean I'm so hard to read? I'll tell you anything you want to know." And what I've learned is people with ADHD, not all of them, but some of them do something called stonewalling, which is an accident. It's not something conscious, where you're telling me something about your day, whatever it is, or about our relationship, and I have nothing to add. And so what on my face you see? Nothing. Yeah. And I've acknowledged them, like, "Oh, this is fantastic and wonderful. This is great, but I have nothing substantive to add, so I just add nothing." And so the accidental effect is, did I say something wrong? Did I offend him? Does he not agree? And so I know that about myself now. So I can say to somebody, if you're not getting the reaction that you need, if you need any reaction, just ask me for a reaction. How does that make you feel? Is that okay? I'm like, "Oh my God, that's fantastic." Right? And I'll give it to you. Or I'm really blunt and forward with questions. For example, I have a friend, she's an entrepreneur, she's a solopreneur, she offers services to people, and I think she's priced too low. And I was having this conversation with her, and I said, what do you charge? She told me the price, and I said, why do you charge that? That's how I asked the question. Why do you charge that? And she was telling me about this just about a week ago. It was really funny. And in my mind, that's a perfectly legitimate question. In her mind, it was such an aggressive affront. Like, what do you mean, why do I charge that? And I'm like, you're worth more. Why do you charge that? You know? I said, well, how should I have asked that question? And I guess normal people would have said, oh my God, you're worth so much more than that. Why do you charge that? You know? But I don't. I'm just like this. So I recognize that in a professional context, it's one thing. People can deal with questions like that, delivered like that in a meeting. But in a relationship, not so much. And so like sitting in this space, I'm like going through all of these mistakes or things that I've done over the course of years. And I'm a little annoyed by myself, you know? Now I know you don't want to live life in a rearview mirror, but I mean, I can still take account. And I'm annoyed, you know? I wish I had these skills 10 years ago, you know? So I'm just sitting in a period in my life where I just, you know, I would have liked to have had some of the experiences that I haven't had yet. And, you know, my friends who are in fix-it mode, they're like, but think of it as an opportunity. Now you have these skills. And thank you, I know that. But allow me to mourn the past. That's my loneliness. I'm just mourning. I'm in a period of mourning.
I have to say something.
I can mourn loss, can't I? Like if I lose a friend or a loved one, you know, allow me to just like mourn, and then I'll move forwards. Like I'm okay. I will move forwards, but allow me to mourn loss. And that's all I'm doing is just allow me to mourn the loss, and I'll be fine. Just hold space for me. Come and sit in the mud with me. Ask me how I'm feeling. Ask me how I'm doing. Just let me vent. Just sit in the mud with me. And, you know, again, I think to your point, I think we just live in a world where most people are ill-equipped on how to be there for a friend who's struggling.
Can you give, I learned this term the other day, which I love. I learned it from Lex Friedman. Can you give the steel man argument for your friends that are telling you to, trying to offer advice in your morning process and trying to get you to be more future orientated? As in the steel man argument, I mean, is can you give the argument for why they're doing that and why it's a good thing?
Emotions are good. It means you're human. Like I said, I believe in mental fitness, not mental health. You know, that like your body, you have to work out, you have to eat well, you have to sleep all the time. It's not something you do and then you're done. You know, we've used that analogy before, you and I, which is what the infinite game is, which is it's like I want to be healthy. Okay, well, you're going to have to do it for the rest of your life. It's not an event. And our mental health, our mental fitness is exactly the same, which is it's constant and it's ups and downs. And it's only a challenge or you need to start involving professionals if you get stuck, you know, like if you get stuck in sadness and you cannot get out of it. That's a different conversation. If you get stuck in depression and you cannot get out of it, if you get stuck in loneliness and you cannot get out of it. And by the way, the thing that I love about human beings is we can have multiple conflicting feelings simultaneously. I am lonely and optimistic simultaneously. My optimism, you know, I pride myself on my optimism. My optimism has not diminished in the least. Optimism doesn't mean I can't sit in a dark tunnel. Optimism means that I believe there's a light at the end of the tunnel, even if that light is far away. I have an undying belief that the future is bright. This too will pass, right? That doesn't mean I enjoy it. It doesn't mean I want to be here. And I can be excited and I can hang out with my friends and I can have an amazing time with my friends and then go home and still feel lonely. Like, you can have simultaneous and conflicting feelings. That's allowed. In fact, it's normal. But I cannot stress. I think that the way that I manage this differently than most, I don't usually talk about it on podcasts, but whatever.